Let's take a look at polynomial equations. And the first thing we'll talk about, as soon as I get my pen working, there it goes, is the zero factor property. And this says if you got something times something else equal to 0, and it really is as vague as that, as long as you got something times something. They can be 2 terms, 1 term, 3 terms, square roots, absolute values. You just got something as a product. Then you can set each factor equal to 0. So I'll set p equal to 0, and I'll set q is equal to 0. Now some books call this the zero product principle, zero product property. There's different names for it. I like this name the best. Let's take a look at our first problem. This property is very easy if you know how to factor. If you don't know how to factor, it'll be it's kind of challenging. Now in this one, first thing, zero factor property. You have to have 0 on one side. Well, we have 0 on the right side, so that's done. Then we need to factor, and this will be the GCF. They both are divisible by 6, and they both have 1c. So I factor out a 6c. 6 divided by 6 is 1. We had c squared. I took one of the c's away, so that leaves me a single c. Minus 24 divided by 6 is 4. We had 1c here. We took it away, so there's no c's left. So we got 6c times c minus 4 equal to 0. Zero factor property says you get 0 on one side, you factor the other side, you set each factor equal to 0. So I'll set 6c equal to 0, and I'll set c minus 4 equal to 0. And now we just solve these. These are linear equations. This one will divide both sides by 6. And 0 divided by 6 is 0. And on this one, we'll take negative 4 over to the right side, and it becomes a positive 4. And those are our two answers. Okay, problem number 2. We've got y squared minus 14y equals negative 49. And we want to use same property. Instructions are to solve. And when it's more than a linear equation where you have like second power, third power, and above, use the zero factor property. Try to get 0 on one side, try to factor it. If that doesn't work, there's some other techniques we'll see later on. But the first thing I notice here, it doesn't have 0 on the right side. So I'm going to take that negative 49 and move it to the left side. So we've got y squared minus 14y plus 49 equal to 0. Now this is the PSD method. We got y squared, y, no y, and there's no number in front of our y squared. PSD would take the number at the end of 49, ignoring signs. If there's negative 49, we'd still just take 49. And we'll come up with our 3 columns. Our product column, our S column for sum, and D for difference. The product column, we're going to list all the products give us 49. We got 1 times 49. 2, no, 3, 4, 5, 7 times 7. In the S column, sum, we're going to add these together. 1 plus 49 is 50. 7 plus 7 is 14. In the difference column, we want to subtract them, smaller from larger. 49 minus 1 is 48. 7 minus 7 is 0. Now the number we're looking for is a number in our middle term, which is 14, which is right here, which means we use 7 and 7. Now our note on our sign says that your larger number in the P column will be the same sign as the middle term. Middle term is negative, and these are both the same, so there is no larger number, so I just pick any 7. I'll pick this one. And it's going to be the same sign as the middle term. Now, that if you number your circles in the S column, remember S for same signs, both positive, both negative. If the number your circles in a difference column, D for different signs, one's positive, one's negative. Well, it's in the S column, so both same sign. If this one's negative, then this one has to be negative. Zero factor property says you get 0 on one side, you factor the other side, you can set each factor equal to 0. Now these are both the same, so it doesn't do me any good to set both of them equal to 0. So I'll set y minus 7 equal to 0 and solve for y, and we get y is equal to 7. Now pretty much in intermediate algebra we're happy with that answer. We'll find later on in college algebra we'll want to have as many answers as our largest power, our degree. Which means we'd write it y is equal to 7, y is equal to 7. You write them both down. Or you write y is equal to 7 and multiplicity of 2 to indicate there's 2, it repeats. But for now we won't worry about that. Let's look at our third problem. We've got negative 24x squared plus 14x minus 2 equal to 0. Zero factor property. First thing you have to do is get 0 on one side. Well, we have 0 on the right side, so that's a start. Then we'll factor out the GCF. All of these are divisible by 2, and my first term is negative. Remember, with the GCF, if your first term is negative, you always want to factor out a negative. So factor out negative 2. Negative 24 divided by negative 2 gives us a 12x squared. 14 divided by negative 2 is negative 7x. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is a positive 1. Equals 0. Now looking at what's inside the parentheses, this is going to be the key number. We have x squared, x, no x, and there's a number in front of our x squared. With the key number, we take the number at the beginning times the number at the end. So take 12 times 1, ignoring signs. Not that everything's positive here, but and again, we're looking at just what's inside the parentheses. And we'll use our 3 columns again a little bit differently. We'll write down all products give us 12. We got 1 times 12. We got 2 times 6. And we got 3 times 4. In the S column, we want to add them together. 1 plus 12 is 13. 2 plus 6 is 8. 3 plus 4 is 7. In the difference column, we want to subtract them. 12 minus 1 is 11. 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. Now the number we're looking for is a number in our middle term, which is a 7. Which is right here. So we're going to use 3 and 4. Now the negative 2 just carries down out in front. Remember with the key number method, we rewrite our middle term using these two numbers. Our larger number in the P column that we're going to use, which is 4, is always the same sign as the middle term. So this will be a negative 4x. Number I circled in the S column, S for same sign, so if the 4 is negative, then the 3 will be negative. We then use factoring by grouping. Negative 2 again just keeps carrying down. Looking at my first group here, the 12x squared minus 4x, I have a 4x in common. And that gives us 3x minus 1. Second group doesn't have anything in common, but my first term is negative, so I'll factor out a negative 1, and that gives us 3x minus 1. Now remember, our goal was to get this parentheses the same as that, and they are, so I'll factor out the 3x minus 1. And remember, you can cross out what's the 3x minus 1 to see what goes in your second set of parentheses, which would leave us 4x minus 1 equal to 0. Now the zero factor property doesn't have any kind of limits on how many you can have. Here we have 3 things multiplied together. Well, I'll set all three of them equal to 0. So I got negative 2 equal to 0, 3x minus 1 equal to 0, and 4x minus 1 equal to 0. Now negative 2 equal to 0. We're solving for x, and there's no x here, so I can cross that out. You actually never need to set a number equal to 0, because it never goes anywhere. The 3x minus 1 equal to 0, I'll take the negative 1 to the right side, becomes a positive 1. Divide both sides by 3. And we get x is equal to 1/3. The 4x minus 1 equal to 0. I'll take the negative 1 to the right side, becomes a positive 1. Divide both sides by 4, and we get x is equal to 1/4. So those are our 2 answers. You'll find, and again, we don't really talk about this too much in intermediate algebra, but in college algebra. But you find in college algebra, if you're dealing with polynomials, your largest power tells you how many answers you're going to have. Since we had an x squared, that means we're going to have 2 answers. Now, they could be repeated, or they could be imaginary, which we'll see later on in this course, but you'll have 2 answers. Let's take a look at this next one. We'll grab a drink here. So you got x times x minus 11 equals negative 28. Now I always tell my class, well, this is already factored. So can we set each factor equal to 0, set x equal to 0, and x minus 11 equal to 0? And some people catch it right away, some don't. It doesn't have a 0 on the right side, does it? Or any side. It's zero factor property. 0 says you need to get 0 on one side first. What we have to do is actually get rid of the parentheses, get everything over one side, combine together like terms, get 0 on one side, and then refactor it. Well, x times x is x squared. X times negative 11 is negative 11x, and I'll bring the negative 28 over and becomes a positive 28. Now notice we got 0 on one side now, so now we can refactor it and see where we go from there. Now this one is the PSD method. We have x squared, x, no number in front of our x squared. Take the number at the end, the 28. We would ignore signs. If it was a negative 28, we'd still take 28. Write down all products, give us 28. We got 1 times 28, 2 times 14, 3, no, 4 times 7, 5, no, 6, no. The S column, we'll add them together. 1 plus 28 is 29. 2 plus 14 is 16. 4 plus 7 is 11. The difference column will subtract them. 28 minus 1 is 27. 14 minus 2 is 12. 7 minus 4 is 3. PSD method, we're looking for the number in the middle, which is 11, which is right here. So we're going to use 4 and 7. Now the larger number in the P column that we're using, which is a 7, is always going to be the same sign as the middle term, which was negative. The number I circled in the S column, S for same signs, so if this one's negative, then this one has to be negative. Zero factor property says you get 0 on one side, you factor the other side, you set each factor equal to 0. So I'll set x minus 4 equal to 0, and I'll set x minus 7 equal to 0. And then we want to solve these. So take negative 4 over, gives us a positive 4. Take negative 7 over, gives us a positive 7. And those are our two answers. Let's take a look at this next one. Got w to the third minus 2w squared minus 16w plus 32 equal to 0. Going through our methods of factoring, our first one, GCF, don't have any. Start going through them, and 4 more terms, factor my grouping. Don't have any choice. You have 4 more terms, you have to use that. So group the first 2 together, group the last 2 together. First 2 have a w squared in common. Here I had 3 w's, I took 2 of them away, so that leaves me a single w, minus 2, and I had 2 w's and took them both away, so there's no w's left. Negative 16w plus 32. They're both divisible by 16, and the first term is negative, so I'll factor out a negative 16. And that gives us w minus 2. Now our goal was to get these the same, which they are, so I'll factor out the w minus 2. This is... computer's kind of hanging up here. I don't know why that is. There. There. Well, I may need to reboot after I create this video, assuming it lets me finish. Unless my pen's gone. Try it again. Okay. Well, let me try the other pen. These things do have batteries in them, so maybe that's... Okay, maybe it's the pen then. I didn't even put any battery in the other one. Okay, I factor out w minus 2, so that leaves me w squared minus 16. Now the w squared minus 16, we've got 2 terms of minusing it. That's a difference of 2 squares. And we try to write it as something squared minus something else squared. You take a look at each piece. You ask yourself what times itself gives you each piece. So what times itself gives you w squared? Well, w times w. And what times itself gives you 16? Well, 4 times 4. Difference 2 squares says you take what's inside your first set of parentheses, you add what's in your last, and you take what's inside your first and you subtract what's in your last. Now again, the zero factor property doesn't say how many you're going to have. You can have 3 things multiplied together. We set each factor equal to 0. So I said w minus 2 equal to 0, w plus 4 equal to 0, and w minus 4 equal to 0. Just getting over being sick. Take negative 2 over, gives us positive 2. Take the positive 4 over, gives us a negative 4. And take the negative 4 over and gives us a positive 4. And those are our 3 answers. Now notice our largest power to begin with was w to the third. Again, that tells us we're going to have 3 answers. One more example. We got 56 x to the third plus 13x squared minus 3x equal to 0. First thing I notice is I'm writing it down. Well, we have 0 on the right side, so that's good. But the first thing I notice is they all have an x in common. So I can factor out a GCF, factor out an x. And that gives us 56x squared plus 13x minus 3 equal to 0. Now the x doesn't change anything, it just keeps carrying down out in front. Looking at what's inside the parentheses, this is a key number. That's interesting. There. Reason why it's key number is because we have x squared, x, no x, and there's a number in front of our x squared. So with the key number, we take the number at the beginning times the number at the end, ignoring signs. So I got 56 times 3 gives us 168. Write down all products, give us 168. There's 1 times 168, 2 times 84, 3 times something, 56. That's one I usually don't know is the one that's up there. 4 times something. Let's see, 4 times 42. 5, no, 6. Yeah. 6 times 12, 48. 6 times 28. 7. Let's see, goes in there 2, 14, 28, 4. 7 times 24. 8. 8 times 21. 9. 9. Don't think so. 10. No. 11. Pretty sure it doesn't. 12. Yeah, 12 does. 1. 48. 4. 12 times 14, I think. That one I'm not quite sure about, but I'm too lazy to pick up my calculator. My S column, I want to add these together. Plus, I know where my answer is. So 1 plus 168 is 169. 2 plus 84 is 86. 3 plus 56 is 59. 4 plus 42 is 46. 6 plus 28 is 34. 7 plus 24 is 31. 8 plus 21 is 29. 26. Now, difference column subtracts smaller from larger. So that gives us 167, 82, 53, 38, 22, 17, 13, and 2. Now the number we're looking for is a number in our middle term, which is 13, which is right here, which means we're using 8 and 21. Again, the x carries down out in front, doesn't change anything, but you can't drop it. And we're going to rewrite our middle term, the 13x, using those two numbers. Now our larger number that we're going to use, which is the 21, is always going to be the same size as the middle term, which is positive. So we've got plus 21x. Now the number I circled is in the difference column, D for different signs. So if the 21 is positive, then the 8 has to be negative. Then I want to factor by grouping. First two have a 7x in common. And that gives us 8x plus 3. Second group has nothing in common, but my first term is negative, so I'll factor out negative 1, and that gives us 8x plus 3. Our goal was to get this parentheses the same as that, which it is, so now I'll factor out an 8x plus 3, and that leaves us 7x minus 1 equal to 0. Okay, zero factor property. It says you get 0 on one side, you factor the other side, you set each factor equal to 0. So I'll set x equal to 0, 8x plus 3 equal to 0, and 7x minus 1 equal to 0. Now the x equals 0 is already solved, so don't have to worry about that. The 8x plus 3 equal to 0, take 3 over, becomes a negative 3. Divide both sides by 8. And we get x is equal to negative 3/8. Here, take the negative 1 over, becomes a positive 1. Divide both sides by 7. And we get x is equal to 1/7. And those are our three answers. And I believe the end of that section. Yes.